In this video, I want to teach you guys how to find the line of good karma on your hand. I'm also going to teach you its variations, and we'll also connect this into palmistry symbols so that you guys can make better sense of the karma you've brought from your past life and how to amplify and grow it in this life. And the first step to all of this is to figure out where the line actually is. So what I'd like you guys to do is to have a look at this semicircular line that starts from the Mars mount and goes up into the Sun mount. This line in India is known as a line of good karma. Or more correctly, it's known as the Purva Rekha. Now Purva is a word that means past or earlier. Rekha is a word that means line. So this is the line of what's happened earlier. Or in other words, it's a line of good karma. And in Western palmistry, they think of this line as being like a complement to the sun line. So if you see a straight line that goes up into this area, that's not the Purva Rekha, that's the sun line. And that's got like a similar meaning, but it's not connected to your past lives. And this line's going to have a couple different variations. So normally it'll go up into the sun mount, but if you see a branch into the Saturn mount, then that's going to mean that your good karma that you'll manifest in this life is going to be based around financial matters, so money and wealth and that sort of thing. If your Purva Rekha line goes into the Jupiter mount, that means that your good karma will be spiritual in nature. And if it goes in the middle, it's kind of like you get a bit of both of these. Now, one of the coolest combinations with this line is if you have two of them running parallel to each other, like you see in this hand over here. Whenever you get two sun lines next to each other, that's an indication of receiving sudden wealth or receiving wealth quickly out of nowhere. And if we were to take this like a step further, you can see on this hand how it turns into a palmistry symbol of a temple. Now a temple is a sign of charity, but it's also one of self-mastery at a spiritual level. And if we were to make like a step 3 to all of this, you see how it forms a trident at the very end there? That means that the karma he earns by building that temple will manifest the trident. What does the trident mean? That's about fame, especially on this part of the hand. So let's look at this as like a 3-step act. Firstly, the good karma from previous lives will give him money, then he'll build a temple out of it, and he'll be famous or well known in his community for having done this thing. Okay, so that's how this line works, but I want to give you guys a theory to all of this. So if you have a look at where the sun line begins, it starts in the area known as Rahu's triangle. And Rahu is the north node of the moon, and that rules things like foreigners, its illusions, and Maya. And if you were to put an element associated to this planet, it would be smoke. And if you think of the sun as fire and light, well, smoke obscures light. So in India, whenever like the sun goes through an eclipse, they say that Rahu has swallowed the sun. But in this context, the sun line or the light from the sun is being obscured by the smoke of Rahu. But that's in a general sense. With this line, it begins completely outside of Rahu's triangle. It actually starts on the Mount of Mars. And I want you to think of Mars as like the soldier or like the warrior, the disciplined combatant, so to speak. And think of the sun as like the emperor or king of the zodiac. And in that context, Rahu's like the foreigner. He's the outsider who's always trying to topple the emperor. Well, it's Mars that defends the king, and he repels Rahu. And this is a theme even in Indian astrology, that Mars and also Jupiter, both of these can repel the negative influence or illusion of Rahu. But over here, when this line goes from this place up into the sun mount, that strengthens the sun. So you can kind of see how this works. Now there is one variation I do need to tell you guys about this. If you see this line on the hands of children, then you've got to take it as a special case. Children, by their very nature, are innocent. If a child brings good karma into this life, that means that they're the sort of person who would have done good karma in their previous life. They're more sensitive than most kids, and they'll be more emotional and less grounded than most other children as well. You can generally see a chained heart line or a chained lifeline at the start of their lines here. And you don't want your kids, or any child for that matter, being so sensitive that they can't function in the world. So if you see this line on the hands of a child, you should recommend activities that strengthen Mars. So this child here, for example, he was 4 years old when this photo was taken, and his parents put him into taekwondo and karate classes. And as a result of that, this line is actually a whole lot thicker and stronger now. In other words, he's learned to ground his spiritual energy from his past life. And that is how this line works. You can use it to amplify what you've already got. You can use it to amplify what you've brought in from your previous life. And if you see it on the hands of kids, you can actually teach them how to work with this energy too. Now, if you have any questions, put them in the comment section below, or hit like if you've learnt something, and make sure to subscribe to us. Thanks a lot, guys.